everybody. Welcome to the Week 2 NFL Recap. Really excited to jump into the games from this week, but first I just wanted to highlight a couple things. If you guys would like me to make a shorter form video on a specific sports topic, whether it's a player profile or a coach or a team or whatever that may be, drop it in the comments. Let me know, because I would love to make videos on what you guys want to see as well. And I'm always open to suggestions. I'm new to this thing. Definitely my first time doing a podcast or anything like that, and I want it to feel like a real community thing. So yeah, if you guys have anything that you want me to cover, anything you want me to talk about, make a video on, just let me know and I'll do my best. So yeah, with that being said, I did want to talk about one big event this weekend that happened Saturday night, and that was the Terrence Crawford-Canelo Alvarez fight. Me and my buddy David watched this fight, and man, it lived up to the hype. It was crazy because through the 4 fights that were on that fight card, there wasn't a single knockdown in any of those fights. But anyways, Terrence came into this thing and people were worried about him because he moved up 2 weight classes to fight Canelo. There was some real concern that he was gonna get it handed to him because Canelo's a strong guy. He's got a good punch, a good chin, and Crawford just handled business, man. He ate every single one of Canelo's shots and returned 3 for what it felt like every punch Canelo landed. He was poised. He was so good at slipping every one of Canelo's punches. You could tell Canelo was frustrated. Goes to unanimous decision. Crawford wins. Now holds belts in 3 different weight classes or something like that, which has never been done. But it was incredible because all he did was give glory to God in his press conference. He was literally on one knee pointing to the sky as it was announced that he won the fight. And he said he just wanted to thank God because God put him on the platform to be able to even win tonight, and he just wants to give him glory. So I love seeing stuff like that. I think it's incredible. But anyways, with that being said, let's jump into these games. Now, so far this week, going back to Thursday night and then all the games yesterday on Sunday, we still have the 2 night games tonight, which is between the Texans and Bucks, and then a really late night game, which I probably will not be staying up for, which is the Raiders versus the Chargers. So on my picks, I'm 10-4 so far. I feel pretty good about that. I should honestly be 11-3, but the Jags choked. We'll talk about that game here in a minute, but with that being said, let's jump into this. So Rams, they start off the season 2-0 versus the Titans, who now fall to 0-2. The final score ended up being 33-19 in favor of the Rams. So my notes on the Titans: Cam looked decently solid. His first half was stronger than his second half, that was for sure. He looked really composed in the pocket, had some good deliveries. They're doing a good job at getting him comfortable with some screen passes, some drag routes, some typical throws. But he had some great throws to Alec Manor. He had a couple throws that probably shouldn't have been thrown, but his touchdown pass to Alec Manor, I mean, he was rolling out right, threw it all the way across his body. It was a total moon ball, and it fell right to him. But he had some really, really good-looking throws. Got a good chemistry going with Manor, who is also a rookie, so that's exciting if you're a Titans fan for sure. The big thing for the Titans this game was their defense just got lit up. I mean, Puka Nacua was having his way. Devontae Adams is incredible. The run game was really not a big factor, and they didn't need it to be because the Rams did such a good job at just throwing the ball well. On the Rams side of things, Blake Corum was a great feature back. You know, I believe he was on Michigan's team when they won the national championship. I could be wrong about that, but I believe he was. And he was an awesome feature back to Kyren Williams. It looked like he was a lot more productive than Kyren. Kyren's had a little bit of a slump this year, starting off through 2 games, but nice to have a second guy in the backfield that you can reliably hand the ball off to. One of the guys I wanted to highlight for the Rams is this guy, Nate Landman, who is probably one of the coolest names in the NFL. But if you don't remember from last week, he was the one that had the clutch punch out against the Texans to give the Rams the win. He secured the ball, and that led to the Rams being able to kneel it out, winning the game. The Rams defense was really strong. They had 5 sacks, and I really do think that this team looks poised to win the NFC West. I see this team beating the 49ers, and I see this team beating the Seahawks as long as Stafford's healthy. I feel like that is the big thing with this team. You know, coming into the season with some back injuries, like if Stafford is healthy, I think it's going to be a real Super Bowl contention. But if he gets hurt, it's going to be hard to judge. I don't even know who they have at their secondary quarterback, but yeah. So the game flow of this game, that's kind of how I break down these games, is I write notes on like the teams, so like the Titans and the Rams, and I have a game flow where you're that's more so like the feel of the game and how it played out. It was a really competitive first half. The Titans were doing a great job keeping up. The Rams were a little slow getting started. Stafford had a bad pick right before the half, which I believe set up the field goal that tied the game 10-10. So it was a really competitive first half. The main thing is that the Rams made really good adjustments after halftime. Their defense was looking really stout, and their offense was really clicking. They were definitely on a roll after that. One of the big turning points in the game was Cam Ward had a fumble late in the third quarter, early in the fourth quarter, I believe, and that kind of just put it out of reach for the Titans. So the Rams walk away from Tennessee 2-0, starting off the season. Next game, we got the Jags versus Bengals. This game was not what I expected it to be. I really did expect the Bengals to struggle. I believe that I called this one really well. I had said last week that my biggest struggle with this Bengals team is really going to be that offensive line not holding up. I mean, Burrow was constantly pressured last week. He was getting hit repeatedly. It was really bad. It was a really bad showing from the Bengals last week. And this offensive line has got to get sorted out. We just found out today Burrow's going to be out for 3 months because he tore a ligament in his toe or strained a ligament in his toe. But even before that injury, I mean, he was constantly pressured. I think that he had already been sacked once or twice at that point. And the Jags do have a great defensive front, but this Bengals offensive line just can't compensate. They can't compensate for any kind of pass rush, it seems. So really bummed for Joe getting injured. Hate to see that. But yeah, so what a wild second half this game was. But we'll jump in with my notes for the Jags. So Trevor had a very bipolar game, I would say. Brian Thomas had a lot of drops. He had some good throws. De'Ami Brown was playing really well for the Jags and was a reliable target for Trevor for sure. And I honestly just feel like the Jags probably should have run the ball more a little bit. I felt like they were putting a lot on Trevor. He had some bad throws, but yeah, just kind of a weird game for Trevor. Would have liked to see some more consistency, and they probably walk out of there with a win. But man, Brian Thomas really did have a bad game. You know, I was saying last week the Jags really need to target him more this week because of how talented he is, and they targeted him a lot, and he just was not catching the ball. They had some good coverage on him, but he had I believe a quick slant that should have been a touchdown, had a couple routes where you're just expecting him to make that catch because of what he proved last year of being incredibly solid. The Jags did also put up 3 sacks and 11 pass deflections, but the main thing was they just couldn't stop Chase. So Burrow gets injured, and Jake Browning comes into the game. He's had quite a bit of starting experience filling in as a backup quarterback. And you could tell the game plan was throw the ball to Jamar. That'll take a lot of pressure off of Browning. And then all they really needed to do is allow the defense to flock to Chase, and then they were able to hit guys like T. Higgins and this one rookie, Tinsley. I'll talk about his catch in a minute. Yeah, so hard loss for the Bengals in terms of losing Joe, especially for 3 months. I think a lot of fans are probably saying punt the season, which I can understand. They put so much on the guy because he is so talented, and not having him just because your offensive line can't come through, that's just rough. So he goes down, Jake Browning comes in, and like I was saying, that game plan to get Jamar Chase the ball, he had 14 catches, 100-plus yards, and 1 or 2 touchdowns. And it really allowed the other wide receivers to get open well. There was the rookie Tinsley. He had this crazy, it was a good throw from Browning. He put it up, and Tinsley just goes up left hand right in the end zone, snags it, gets a foot and a shin down, and it was a touchdown. It was probably the best catch I think I saw all week. It was a phenomenal one for sure. So the Bengals, they definitely have to figure things out on defense. They came up when it mattered, but they allowed 400 yards. It feels like it's kind of Trey Hendrickson, and like he's like the front man for a band, and no one else in the band is doing a whole lot. I do like Jordan Battle. I think Jordan Battle is good, and he does fly around, but the Bengals definitely have a lot of issues on defense in terms of consistency. But Trey came up when it mattered, had the game-sealing clutch sack to down the Jags to win that game. There was a really cool final drive by Cincy as they were coming down to take the lead with only seconds left on the clock. My Philly people know the tush push. If you're not from Philly, you probably hate it, but that's okay. We're fine with that. But the Bengals did a different rendition of it where Jake Browning literally jumped, and it was like the tight end just threw him over the offensive line. It was really cool to see. I hope we see more of that because that was a fun play for sure. So the Jags are now 1-1. The Bengals are 1-1 as well. Or no, I'm sorry. The Bengals are 2-0, I believe. Yeah, the Bengals are 2-0 because they beat the Browns last week. My bad. Moving on to the Browns. They walked into the Ravens at M&T Bank Stadium, and it was a a typical Browns Ravens game that we're used to seeing in this age where they get stomped. It was a weird game. Like, I believe the Ravens only had like 250 yards of total offense and put up 41 points. I'll talk about some of the reasons why that actually happened. But for the Browns, I really just said, honestly, not a whole lot to say. Played a great team and they struggled. Myles Garrett is always great, but a tough outing for the Browns. It was just one of those things where Joe Flacco couldn't really get going. Jerry Jeudy was okay. Just didn't have any real production on the field outside of some good field position scoring drives. You know, it was a hard game. You know, definitely was expecting to see Njoku get a little bit more going this week. He had a great finish to the year. Not last year, but 2 years ago, working with Joe Flacco. So I kind of thought that we could rely on that connection, and just didn't really happen. But anyways, the Ravens, Lamar was Lamar. They had incredible wide receiver production. The one thing that I did notice with the Ravens team, though, so far this year is Mark Andrews hasn't really been much of a factor, which is kind of a surprise. But DeAndre Hopkins is looking vintage. Zay Flowers is incredible. And they played a great game. They didn't even really get the run game going, but they didn't have to because they were just making incredibly huge plays on offense with deep shots to those guys that I just mentioned. But also, one of the really big things is they had a punt block that set them up for a quick touchdown. They had a huge pick from Nate Wiggins. He ran it back 60 yards to put them in great field position. And there was one more play where there was a Roquan Smith scoop and score to score even more points. So the Ravens, their defense was suffocating. Again, it's not really like, the Browns. I mean, this Ravens team is really good. Again, they lost that game to the Bills last week. That was more so on the Bills being great, not necessarily the Ravens just choking. If you take away Derrick Henry's fumble, I don't think the Ravens lose that game. But again, I said it last week, the NFL is a world of ifs, ands, or buts, and that's not reality. So Browns fall to 0-2. The Ravens are now 1-1. It was a great game by the Ravens, though. Great pressure. Now we got the 2-0 Bills going up against the 0-2 Jets. The final score of the last game was 41-17. Final score of this game, the Bills walked away with a win, 30-10. James Cook is a big play guy. He was really the feature for the Jets today. Josh Allen is always annoying to play against, just with, rocket arm. He's pretty darn accurate, but then his running ability is just incredible. But James Cook was definitely the story here. Put up some huge stats to give the Bills a nice lead, and they just kind of it really felt like this game was over in the second or third quarter. It felt like the Jets kind of had just conceded, which I was a little surprised. One of the big blows was definitely Justin Fields getting a concussion, and it looked like Justin Fields was the only thing that the Jets had going for them. They couldn't really get Garrett Wilson open, couldn't get any kind of running game going other than Justin Fields running the ball. So him going out with a concussion, it was definitely a bit of a bummer. Bills defense played good. Their offense showed up when they needed to, and it was just kind of like a very quick getaway. But especially when you have the best quarterback in the AFC East, which is obviously Mitchell Trubisky. Guy came in, Josh Allen. He broke his nose going down on a run. It looked like the guy's hand may have gotten through and popped him in the bridge, and it broke his nose. Mitchell Trubisky comes in and rips a 30-yard bomb. So that was fun to see. I mean, he came right in. He was probably cold too, and just had a great throw. So shout out to the Bills. They're 2-0. One thing I did want to highlight that was really cool was there was a guy on the Bills that did a really cool backflip when they kneeled the ball. So shout out to whoever that guy was. Moving on, we got the Patriots versus the Dolphins. I was wrong about this game. I said this was going to be a poop game, and it was an awesome game. The Patriots walked out of here with a close one, making them 1-1 on the year, and the Dolphins fall to 0-2. The final score was 33-27, and the Patriots won. Big thing for the Patriots, Drake May is a dog. This guy looks so good throwing the ball. He was really composed in the pocket. He was hitting his targets, and then whenever he needed to, he ran well. He had a scrambling touchdown, and it was just awesome. It was a great defensive performance from the front four for the Pats. They had an incredible game. Milton Williams had a breakout game for the Pats with 2 sacks, and he had the game-sealing sack later on in the game. So this Pats team, they played with a lot more fire. That was kind of what I expected them to look like last week, and they kind of fell flat. But this week, they played like a Mike Vrabel team, so I was excited to see that. I'm really excited to see Drake May this season. He played really, really well. Dolphins, Tua looked a lot better. He was a lot more accurate. They did a great job getting the ball to Achane. He had almost 25 touches on the game or something like that, and because he had 10 catches. So he had a great game, looked really good, had some big plays. The big thing for the Dolphins, though, is their entire secondary just is not showing up in a way to stop the pass at all. The Pats really had their way this game. And it was a tough game for the Dolphins in terms of defense. So with how this game actually started, though, May had a great opening drive, and he had another strong drive. They scored a touchdown. I believe it was a rushing touchdown. And then right after that, Drake May had a great drop in the bucket touchdown throw to Boutte. The commentator is saying his name is Booty. I just don't feel right about saying that. I'm just going to call him Boutte. Sorry. But the crazy thing is that the Pats kicker missed both extra points. So a little bit of a scorigami starting off the game there. So Tua had a nice touchdown to Waddle. One of the things that I heard the commentators say, though, was that the Dolphins had allowed 13 straight scoring drives to start the season. And that just goes to show they have a solid-looking defensive line, but that secondary has got to improve, or they've got to bring in some pieces, because that just you can't win games when that's happening, as it proved yesterday. The Pats had 215 yards in the first half. It was a crazy first half for the Patriots. They looked really good. The Dolphins, so it was 15-14 at the half, though. The Dolphins' offense was doing a good job of keeping them in the game, but their defense just really struggled. And one of the crazy things is there was a huge punt return touchdown by Miami to put Miami up 27-23 late in the fourth quarter. And then they score that punt return touchdown. They do the kickoff to the Patriots, and then Antonio Gibson runs that kickoff all the way back for a touchdown to put them back up 33-27. So it was incredible. The Dolphins had a good drive walking down. They had a screen pass to Achane. If he hadn't stepped out, it would have set them up for a touchdown. It was so close, but unfortunately didn't work out for the Dolphins. It was a 4th and 12 with the game on the line. Milton Williams gets the sack to secure the game. So it was a really exciting game, though, for the Patriots and Dolphins. Patriots 1-1, and the Dolphins are now 0-2. Next, we got the 49ers versus the Saints. This game was a lot more competitive than I thought it was going to be. The Saints offense actually looked pretty darn good. You had Mac Jones stepping in for the injured Brock Purdy, and I feel like he had a pretty good game. They didn't have Kittle either, and he did a great job at finding Jennings. He had a good job finding Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey ran the ball well. And for the Saints offense, Rattler played really well. He looked composed. He was hitting some big throws. It was a really good offensive battle, but the 49ers did enough, and the 49ers defense was definitely very clutch to pull out this game. But the Saints kept fighting. I really do have to give it to them. They kept fighting. They were down 26-14, and Rattler walked them down the field, made it 26-21. San Francisco then had a 3-and-out, and the Saints had the ball with 3 minutes. Bosa had a huge sack on 3rd down to force a punt. San Francisco then had to punt, and then the Saints fumbled on 4th and 2 with an opportunity to get a go-ahead touchdown. And I believe it was Nick Bosa that got the sack again. So Nick Bosa has 2 game-winning sacks in 2 weeks of football. So it was a great job by the 49ers winning that game. Up next, we got the Giants and the Cowboys. Nobody, I think, was expecting a Russell Wilson 450-yard and 3-touchdown game, with the final score being 37-40, the Cowboys winning in overtime. The highlights for this game were just unreal. Super proud of Russ. I have to eat my words. Last week I said, why is Russell starting? I just don't get it. And man, he was playing gutsy. He was letting everything rip, and it was paying off. Big game for Malik Nabers, and Malik Nabers had over 100 yards, and then also Jaden Hyatt had over 100 yards. I mean, they just looked really, really, really good. I just want to make sure I'm right in saying that. I don't want to give credit where it's not due and not give credit where it's due, but I do believe that it was I do believe that it was Malik Nabers and Jaden Hyatt. But yeah, so Russ was vintage. Incredible game from him. Oh, it was Robinson. Ty Robinson, I think his name is. There was not much defense to be had in this game, but the Giants offense Russell was just slinging it. It was such a fun game to watch. And then on the flip side of that, the Cowboys, they had a great game from Javonte Williams with 2 rushing touchdowns. Dak had a great game. CD was getting open, did not have any drops this week, which is definitely big. George Pickens came up big when he needed to. Brandon Aubrey hit some crazy field goals, and that was kind of the big story of this game was, Russell was just ripping the most crazy passes and completing them and getting touchdowns. Trayvon Diggs was getting toasted this whole game, which I was really surprised to see. He has not looked the same this year. And then some great fourth down conversions by the Cowboys. And then they get a touchdown. The Giants had 35 seconds to score a touchdown. They were down by 4, so they had to score a touchdown. And then it was a huge deep ball to Neighbors, 48 yards, right in the bucket, touchdown pass. Neighbors hits him with the Steph Curry go to sleep. And with 14 seconds left, Dak gets Brandon Aubrey in position to hit a 60-yard field goal. And, of course, this guy hits it. This guy is the best kicker in the league. Sends it to overtime. The Cowboys had to punt to start overtime. The Giants had a huge fumble on 3rd and 17, so they had to punt. Dak got sacked. It was 2nd and 29. Javonte Williams had a big run, but the Cowboys still had to punt. And then a deep ball from Russ with 2 minutes left gets him down there. And then I believe they had to punt again. Like they only got to midfield and got driven back, and then they had to punt. And then Dak had a huge throw to Pickens, a big scramble to set up the game-winning field goal, and the Cowboys take this game 37-40. One thing with the Giants, the penalties were terrible. They had so many penalties. They had an offensive lineman get pulled from the game on the first drive because he had given up like 3 penalties in a row or something like that, and it was like they were all 15 yards, like unsportsmanlike conduct, where he was like trying to fight one of the guys on Dallas's D-line. So can't have that, man. Definitely can't have that. Surprised to see that, but moving on, we got the Bears 0-2 playing the Lions, who got their first win of the year. The final score of this game was 21-52 in favor of the Lions. Man, it was a great game from the Lions. They looked like their old selves. They had the explosive plays, they had the end arounds, the jet sweeps, the deep shots to J-Mo, big runs from Jahmyr Gibbs. This looked like the Lions that we've seen the last 2 years. So it was a really fun game watching them doing their thing. Amon-Ra had 150 yards and 3 touchdowns. He had a great game. It was an awesome game from the Lions. The Bears defense just couldn't keep up with them. On the Bears side of things, he had some really good touchdown passes to Rome Odunze, but he's just struggling with some consistency right now. I'm curious to see how they can carry on and how Caleb can grow. Again, he's really young, so it's not one of those things where you can just say, oh, the guy's a bust. He's got to figure it out. But yeah, really the Lions, they got out ahead of the Bears, and they just didn't look back. Dominant win. Excited to see what the NFC North is going to shape out to be. I still think the Packers are going to take it. Vikings had a rough game last night, which we'll jump into later on, but big game from the Lions, big win. Bears got to figure out some games. Need to get a couple wins back, build some confidence. But this team is still talented. They can do something, but they just need to get that first win. Caleb's got to feel confident and have a really good performance, and then they can keep moving from there. Moving on, the Steelers versus the Seahawks. Both teams are now 1-1. The Steelers get their first loss, and the Seahawks get their first win of the year. Seahawks won this game 31-17, and I think the big thing for the Seahawks is that all their key offensive players were just doing what they needed to do. They did a great job of exactly what I recommended last week. I am a sports expert, as we all know, but just doing the bootleg play action passes to Sam Darnold, they did a lot of that. Sam is looking for JSN every single throw, and JSN seems to always be open, which was awesome. Kenneth Walker had a great game, which was cool to see him playing well. So it was a really good game from the Seahawks offensively. Sam did have one pick that was a bad overthrow, but largely their offense was pretty darn efficient and played, again, a quote-unquote good Steelers defense. I mean, they had a lot of injuries up front. They did, so I want to give them grace for that, but this is 2 weeks in a row where the Steelers have really been gashed, and I don't think anyone was expecting that because of the talent that they have on the field. Yeah, so great game from the Seahawks. On the Steelers, again, they had a lot of defensive injuries. Jaylen Warren had a really good game, had some huge plays, had a sweet hurdle in the first half, but it was just kind of one of those games where the Steelers had a lot of mistakes. They had a drive where they got down into the red zone. Aaron Rodgers throws this super low ball, and it was going to Freiermuth. Calvin Austin dives to try and catch it, tips off of his hands, goes right to the Seahawks, so it was a pick. which that was a hard one to come back from. And then also fluky plays, like they had a rookie back on coverage for the kickoff. The Seahawks kick it, lands in the landing zone, and he lets it bounce over his head, or he may have touched it. It was really hard to tell, but regardless, it was a live ball, and it was just sitting in the end zone. The Seahawks covered up and get a touchdown. So kind of a victim to the new rules, but also just a rookie mistake. But that was hard. It was hard seeing him on the sideline. You could tell he was frustrated. So yeah, it was a really good game by the Seahawks, closing out the Steelers. And the Steelers offense looked really good last week and just didn't get going the same way that you expect. But yeah, great game from K9. Had a 15-yard touchdown to really seal that game up. And then Rodgers had an overthrow pick to seal that game. So that is it for the 1 p.m. games. Moving on to the evening games, we had the Broncos versus the Colts. Man, this was an incredible game where it was back and forth. Really felt like the Broncos were going to take it the whole time, and they just were not able to close out this pesky Colts team. I felt like Bo had a really good game. I think he was strong in the pocket. He was confident. He did have one bad, as we call them, boverthrows. He had one bad boverthrow, but other than that, he looked good. And I'm just trying to get to the box score real quick. Yeah, but Bo looked good. But that's the thing, man. What I was saying last week is this Colts team has some very dynamic weapons, with Jonathan Taylor looking like his old self again, and Tyler Warren had some big production as well. Indiana ended up winning this game on a field goal to make it 29-28. But yeah, it was an interesting game because the Broncos have a great defense. They played really well against Tennessee last week, but against this Colts team, it was like they made some of the big plays, like the third down stops. I can't remember. I don't think they had a pick, but they had some really big plays. But then they really got it was the big plays against them that really hurt them. They lost. They gave up 473 yards, and there was huge runs from Jonathan Taylor. Tyler Warren had some big plays where he was open. Alec Pierce had 2 deep shots where he was open, and they only put up 1 sack, which was really surprising. You expect a little more from this Denver front, but maybe the Colts are just the real deal, man, because Danny was looking good. Again, you had vintage Jonathan Taylor, which was awesome to see, and Tyler Warren's just an animal, man. He is all over the place, and he's incredible. So it was a close game. It was 21-20 at halftime. J.K. Dobbins came out and had a rushing touchdown for the Broncos to put them up 28-20. Colts then went down and got a field goal to make it 28-23, and then that was when Bo threw the pick. The Colts got inside of the red zone, and then they had to settle for a field goal, making it 28-26. There was a huge run from Dobbins. Offensive face mask drove them back, though. And then the Broncos kicker had the wildest flutter kick that doinked. It was right down the middle, and then it just darted, hits the upright, and misses wide. And then the Colts drive down with 2 minutes left, and then they have a 60-yard field goal to win the game by 1 point. And he totally shanks it. Missed it. It was a terrible miss. But they won the game, right? So how did that happen? One of the Denver Broncos jumped the offensive line, and it was called improper leverage or something like that. It was a penalty. They get a re-kick. The guy drills it to win the game for the Colts. So 29-20, Colts get a big win. Next, we had the Panthers versus the Cardinals. This was a game where the Cardinals had a lead early, and the Panthers looked really bad. It started with a strip sack touchdown for the Cardinals. The Panthers just looked like they were getting buried, but Bryce did have some good throws to Teterow and McMillan, and the Cardinals offense looked they looked good. Kyler had some big plays, some really big scrambles for good yardage, some deep throws. But this game near the end, the big thing was the penalties. I mean, it was wild. It was like, it was 20-3 at the half, and then it was 27-3 when James Conner came out and had a rushing touchdown. But Bryce had a nice rollout touchdown to Hunter Renfrow. Murray had this crazy escape run and then tries to force a throwaway on the next play, scrambling out, tries to get the ball out, gets hit in the arm, throws a pick. Then the Panthers would go down and score again. And then they recovered the onside kick, which I don't think anybody expected to happen. It seems like since they changed the kickoff rules, no one gets onside kicks, but the Panthers actually get it. And then it was like the Cards defense was playing so well where the Panthers couldn't do anything, and then they would just hand them penalties to let them try again. But the Panthers just couldn't capitalize. It ended up with it being a 4th and 15. Bryce had nowhere to go, rolls out, got sacked. So yeah, it was a really fun game, even though it shouldn't have been. Cards have got to hold on to leads though, man. They've got to get those leads and hold on to them because they almost choked against the Saints last week. Again, they won the game. A win is a win, but can't have that. So moving on to the Eagles versus the Chiefs game. A win is a win. It is indeed Victory Monday, but the notes I have on this game are ugly, scrappy, and crappy. It was a painful game to watch. The defense played good. It was a great defensive matchup. Steve Spagnuolo and Vic Fangio are the best defensive coordinators in the league, and they proved that. It was a real boxing match of defense, not a whole lot of offense, no big throws, but just good counters and good stops and good. Yeah, but it was a win is a win. That's kind of the main thing. Some of the big storylines from this game was Travis Kelce was wide open on a quick slant, hits him right in the hands, bounces out. Andrew Mukaba, the rookie safety for the Eagles, takes it, runs it 60-something yards. It was a great play. However, the Chiefs' left tackle, he's a rookie out of Ohio State, he booked it all the way down there and caught him and blew him up out of bounds, which was incredible. One of the big things for the Eagles that was good was Zadarius Smith, who we just signed this week. He had a great game, had half a sack, but he had a lot of pressure, some tackle for losses, so it was nice to see that. But the Eagles have got to get this young pass rush going and definitely got to find our passing game. We didn't have many deep shots, didn't have a lot of those nice big plays that we normally get where Smitty catches the ball and then takes off, or AJ gets a quick slant and then takes it a bunch of yards. So it was a very scrappy game, but we know these teams do not like each other. And again, a win is a win, so I'll take it. Eagles are 2-0. The Chiefs are 0-2 for the first time in Patrick Mahomes' career, and they have now lost their last 3 games. 2 of those losses coming to the Eagles, so I'm happy about that. Moving on to the last game before some Monday Night Football tonight, we had the Falcons versus the Vikings. The final score of this game, it was a pretty darn ugly game. Oh, and I'm sorry, the Eagles game ended being, it was, so Carolina lost 22-27, and then the Eagles won 20-17. The final score of this game, Atlanta won 22-6. And it was a hard game for the Vikings offense, that's for sure. It was a slow passing game for the Falcons for sure, but the rushing attack was really good. They didn't take many deep shots at all to to Drake London or to Kyle Pitts or Ray McLeod. Ray McLeod is kind of a big play receiver as well. But the rushing game was really good. Bijan made some really great plays. Tyler Algier had a couple really good drives where it was like they just kind of kept feeding him the ball and he was producing. Big, strong running back. And Atlanta's defense was phenomenal. They forced 6 sacks, 3 fumbles for McCarthy, and 2 picks. So Atlanta, I was expecting their offense to play well. The Vikings do have a great defense. That's the thing, is they gave up 22 points, but it was a field goal fest. I mean, it really was. They only had 1 touchdown, and that was pretty much late in the game when the game was just about over. I think that Atlanta really does have a good offense, but I was not expecting their defense to come out and be this strong. So huge props to Atlanta for a great win over the Vikings. As far as the Vikings are concerned, it was a very tough game for J.J. McCarthy for sure. But can we give this guy a little bit of a break? He did just have a baby like 3 days ago, something like that. So he's a new father. I'm sure he's had no sleep. Super excited. Probably really hard to prepare for a game when you just had your daughter. I don't know if he had a boy or a girl, but I'm saying daughter because I'm having a daughter and I'm very excited. I think it's going to be hard for me to care about sports when I have my wonderful baby girl with me. But anyways, so they just couldn't get McCarthy comfortable. Couldn't really get much of a run game going. The Atlanta defense just really controlled this game very, very well. Yeah, so Atlanta played a really solid game. Great on offense, great on defense. And they get a win, and they are now 1-1, and the Vikings are also 1-1, I believe. The Vikings are... Yes, because they beat the Bears. That's right. They had the comeback last week. Sorry about that. Yeah, so both teams 1-1. Yeah, it was a great game. A little bit boring, but good game if you like defense for sure. A lot of good defensive matchups yesterday, and then some that were absolutely absent of defenses. So Week 2 in the NFL is always interesting. Week 1 is just, you have no idea what to expect. Week 2, you're only going off of the Week 1 storylines, and then you'll see some incredible things going on, like that Giants-Cowboys game or the Dolphins-Patriots game. So yeah, it's a young season. Let's see how Monday night plays out. We got the Bucs versus Texans. I'm picking the Bucs to win this game. The Texans could not get their offense going at all last week. CJ was uncomfortable. That offensive line was not keeping him upright. Nico didn't show up in a big way, and I think that this Bucs defense is very strong. They bent but didn't break against Atlanta, and I like their offense a lot. I do think that the Texans have a good defense. I think that this might be another defensive battle where it'll just see who can break through on offense first to really be the winner of this game. But I'm calling the Bucs win it. That's my pick. Hopefully I can end up being 12-4 on the week, because I am also taking the Chargers to beat the Raiders. I think that this Chargers team really can be legit. They are also coming off of a long break, having played Friday in Brazil from last week, and now they're playing Monday night, so they've had a good break. I think you're going to see another great performance from Justin Herbert, and I just don't think this Raiders defense is going to be able to keep up with the Chargers offense, and I do think that the Chargers defense is going to be able to keep up with the Raiders defense. So yeah, with that being said, that wraps up week 2. I'll cover the Monday night games when we reconvene on Friday, as well as Thursday night's game. But yeah, I want to thank you guys so much for checking out the podcast today. I hope that this is a blessing to you. I've been blessed in this, and just to share and be transparent, there's definitely been a lot of working through fear for me with doing this podcast. I felt the Lord put a burden on my heart to do this thing. And all that Satan is saying in my ear is, people are going to make fun of you. People aren't going to watch it. Like, it's just going to be a waste of your time, a waste of your money, a waste of your investment. Because I am investing time. I have invested money into this thing, but it's not about what I see. It's about what God wants to do with this. So I really just pray that this blesses you. Again, I'm not expecting or wanting to get famous. That's not what I think God is wanting to do with this. But I just want this to be a blessing to you, if you don't know the Lord, to know that Jesus loves you. But if you do know the Lord and you're just looking for a way that you can hear about some sports in a clean way, that gives glory to God, that's not vulgar and nasty, then I pray that this can continue to be a blessing to you. So yeah, just want to thank you guys so much for checking out the podcast. If you listen to the whole thing, I really appreciate it. Leave a comment down below on what you might want me to make a video about, or a topic you want me to cover, and maybe I'll go ahead and do that for you. But with that being said, if this blesses you, share it with a friend, especially someone that you want to see come to know the Lord, or just someone that you know that is looking for something like this, and they love sports and they like the stats, and they're a little bit of a nerd like me when it comes to football. But yeah, guys, with that being said, let's pray, and then we'll wrap it up. So Jesus, I just thank you. I thank you for your goodness. I thank you for loving us. And God, just in what a chaotic week last week was, Lord, I thank you that you are on the throne, that you love us, that you have us in your hand, and that you are a good and gracious God who loves his children and cares for us, Lord. I pray that you would just keep everyone that is listening to this podcast safe, that you would just draw them into a deeper love for you. And we just thank you for the fact that you surrendered all so that way we could have all in you. So we just thank you. We thank you for this day. Thank you for blessing us in Jesus' name. Amen. All right, guys. I'll catch you later.